Well, hello there and welcome to my workshop. Now in this series I'm building a classical style acoustic guitar, but with a difference. I do hope you'll join me. Well, hello there. Now, I'm quite excited today because I've got a bit of a problem that I've got to solve. And you'll know that comes as no surprise if you've been watching my channel for a while. But if you are new to my channel, you'll be wondering, what on earth is this chat what about? Well, let me explain. I've been building a classical style guitar now for nearly a year, I think. This is episode 28. And the way I put videos together is I will show you what I'm doing week by week. And then at the very end of it, I put together a sort of a summary video of the whole build from end to end. So if you'd like to see the whole thing, then you'll have to wait a little while. But I've got plenty of other builds that you can have a look at, so just check out the channel and have a look. Anyway, in this episode I've got a problem with my frets. Now in the previous episode I took some advice from Daisy Tempest, a marvellous acoustic guitar builder, on how to round the end of frets and polish the frets before you actually put them in the guitar, rather than the technique I was using before, which was to put the fret in, then cut the ends and then file it, etc., and all that sort of stuff. And I think this is working really well, and I've got most of the frets in. But I'm now approaching the dusty end of the guitar, which goes across the actual guitar itself, the body of the guitar. And you will notice that my fretboard floats above the surface. Now then, this is purely because I want to see what the effect of that will be on the sound, as opposed to the fretboard actually being attached to the top of the guitar. Because I have this theory that the more top you allow to vibrate, the more bass you're going to get. Now, it may be that the thing is too bassy and I've got to somehow minimize that, but before I put a wedge under that fretboard, I want to see what it sounds like with it just above the body. And that creates a problem when you're trying to fret, because I can't hit the top, it'll just bend down. So how do you get around it? Yesterday I spent a happy hour in the workshop creating this little device here. Now then, this is a steel plate along the bottom, and I've actually put some masking tape on so it doesn't mark the guitar. Into this steel plate I drilled 2 holes and I threaded them, and then into that I've screwed these 2 M10 bolts, and I've also put a locking nut on the bottom. And basically what I did, I screwed it in, I filed off the end so it's perfectly smooth, put some super glue in there, just screwed these tight, and so hopefully these 2 bolts will stay in this steel base. And on top of that I've got this nice piece of Santos rosewood with a couple of wing nuts here on the top, and the idea is I slide this under the fretboard, and hopefully I can get it up far enough just to do that first fret, and then screw this down. Just slide that down there. That will press down there, and I'm not putting any pressure on the top of the guitar because I'm going to be pulling the fretboard up against the top piece of wood here. So I think this is going to work. Obviously the proof is in the eating, as they say, so we're going to have to try it. But before I do that, I need to cut 3 more frets. Now I've refined my process that I started doing in the last episode, so let me just take you through the refined process. First thing to do is to get the length of the fret. Now then, I use these calipers to do that, so I'm just touching each side of the binding there. Now, because the fret wire has a bend in it like that, it's going to stretch a little bit when I bang it in. So what I'm doing is I go back halfway down the fret and set the distance there, and I find that that works best. Now it's just a question of marking that distance, that length, with a pen, and snipping it off. Now, by modifying my fret tang filer by cutting half of the base off, it means that I can just put the fret into that slot and use this shaping file here. This is just a fret top shaping file to get that nice end curve. And this holds it really nice and firm and upright as well. So just work that in, and now just gently put in that sort of bevel. It doesn't need much, to be honest with you, just to create a nice end. Lovely. Okay, now I'll take off the tang. Just file until I can see a nice smooth end. That looks nice. And that looks spot on. So it's just a question of repeating the process on the other end. This is just 600 grit paper. Now I just grip it into my little fret vise here. This is really useful little device, just a piece of wood with a slot in it and a wing nut there. That holds it really nice and tight. Now I can give it a good sanding down, again with just the 600 grit. Also got a 1200 grit as well. And finally a polish. And we end up with a rather smart little fret there with nicely rounded ends. Okay, so I've just got to put this one in there. Now unfortunately for this first slot I can't use my device because it's too narrow and the metal won't go up there, so I can get that piece of padding up there. I've got the guitar resting on quite a firm piece of wood there, so hopefully I can just bang this one in and we should be all right. I didn't like doing that, I tell you. Just wipe off the excess with some water. That looks reasonable. Okay, so I've got another fret that's ready to go in. So I'm going to just use this little triangle file to help the tang slide in easier. Just double check there's no crud in the slot there. I've no idea if that's worked or not. Let's undo it and see what happens. Nope, that's pushed over, it's not gone in. Try again. That's certainly gone down. Let's try again. Nope, that's not going in. One more go. This time we'll go tight on that side. Okay. Try and squeeze it in from that side. I'm putting a lot of pressure on this. Problem is the metal's bowing underneath. Well, I don't know, that looks like it's gone in. Well, that was a bit touch and go, but it's gone in. So I think I'm going to try the other two using that same technique. Right, you come back to me and I'm at the last fret, and I've had to come up with sort of slight modification, because what was happening was the fretboard itself was bending up the shape of this metal here. So what I've done is I've got this little piece of wood which I'm putting underneath, and that keeps the fretboard sort of level. And what I found is I need to screw up this side first, just gently, and squeeze it in from that side, and once I've tightened that, and then I can slowly tighten this one, and hopefully the fret then is pushed in all the way across the fretboard. When I was doing it a little while ago, there was a horrible crack, and I thought, oh crikey, what was that? But I think it was actually the jig, not the fretboard. Okay, let's see if that's done the job. No, that's not gone in right. Okay, so that's just tipped over slightly. So let's go again. Let's go again. Still giving me grief, that is. It's sort of leaning over, I'm not quite sure why. So let's move that down that way a little bit. Try again. That's eventually gone in. Right, well, I do have a bit of an issue. I don't know if you can see it, that last one there, I tried to push down the middle and it's put a dent in it, so that's got to come out. But these other two, they both need to be pushed down in the middle, so I need to come up with some way of doing that. So first of all, I'm going to get this fret back out again before it sets in place. You have to make one more fret. I've only got one piece of fret wire left and that's just enough. Right, I'm going again. I've got another fret. This is the last one I've got, so better go in. Lined up there, lined up there. Try and push it in a little bit to start it off. Okay, so back to the technique of going from one side to the other. Right, okay. Just see what's happened there. Complete disaster there, because that fell over. Really almost want to just be able to get one side in. Just Just wondering whether a pair of pliers with some tape on might do that. It's not really a great idea. So that's gone down. I'm going to just give it another squash. As tight as I can get it. That's certainly gone down better that time. Right, I'm just going to wipe off the glue. Oops, that's the water bottle gone. Right, what I need to try and do is to press these other two down a little bit more. So I'm going to move that into the middle, try and get that there, and really give that a good impression. Actually, move that over there. Let's push those down. Right, well that wasn't an easy job, but I've got all those frets in. I'm not saying they're as perfect as Daisy would get them, but they look a lot better than they did. And I do think that technique works really well for rounding the ends. I'm not so sure about how I put these end ones in, but yeah, gosh, I'm so pleased that's done. Off camera, I've been doing a bit more work on this fretboard. I've used the fret rocker here just to check the frets, and I've had to do a little bit of work on the frets at this end. I mean, this is an experimental guitar. There's no way that anybody is going to make a guitar with a fretboard that hangs over the body like that, but as I explained earlier, this is more experimental, and I want to understand if it has any effect on the tone of the guitar. So now I'm at the position of fitting the bridge and the tailstop, and I've done a bit of work on that. I've put a slot in that, which is quite nice, and I'm actually going to put a brass saddle in there, which I'll show you in a minute. But I think the first thing I want to do is just make sure I can fit this tailstop. Now my idea is the tailstop will be held on with this little bracket thing here. And you'll notice I've got two holes there, I've got two holes there, and the idea is there'll be some pins that hook into those and lock it in place. Now then, I'm going to have to slide this on, and so I'm going to have to make a slot here, but I don't want the slot to appear on the end here. So I need to find out where, let's just move this back, I can go to start the slot, and it's about there. So what I'm going to have to do is widen the hole here so that I can put the bracket on at that point, and then it'll just clip into that bit there. So let's just do that now. Of course, it's one of those situations that had I thought about it a bit more at the beginning, I wouldn't have to fiddle with it at the end. But there we go. So that's going to work, I think. So that's going to go down there, push up, and that's going to go into there. So now I need to mark out where those holes are going to start, or slots I should say. So let's get that level. So I'm going to have to push it on there. Put one there, one there. I'm going to use these steel pins to register the headstock, and so I've just made the hole slightly bigger on that plate there. I should be able to bang this in now. I've marked it so that it doesn't come through. Particularly straight. Right, so I'm going to clip those off now. I think I've got it now, so just put that like that, press that down, push it forwards, and I can probably screw the screw in a bit more. That feels quite good actually. Once it's got the strings pulling on it, I think it's going to be okay. Off camera I've been working on the bridge. Need to do a bit more shaping on it, but I have this piece of brass which I've cut to size, and that will just slot into the slot there. Obviously I've got to cut it into shape there, but I think that's going to look really smart. So what I want to do is shape the sides of this, narrow them down, do my little dolphin inlay on the side, and then we'll sort out that brass saddle. I want to take it in about 5mm on each side, so I've set my little marker here, and I'll just put a line there. It's tearing out a little bit there, not quite sure why. Let's try it the other way. Okay, I think that's as good as I'm going to get it. So it's time to glue it in place. Well, I've shaped the bridge, I've done the inlay and I've done the saddle, and I've lowered it a little bit, so I'm hoping that that's fairly near what it needs to be. But now I want to concentrate on the other end, and I've got a problem with the nut. In my haste to finish this guitar, I cut a slot for the nut and cut it at a funny angle for some reason, then widened it, and well, it just looked a mess. So I've now put a fillet of wood in there, but of course the wood doesn't match up with the grain, and you can see that I've sanded all this back. So I have this piece of brass, and just been chatting with Carolyn about it, my design consultant, and we sort of think that if I cut this a bit narrower up to that line and I shape it a bit, slant it down at the back, that this piece of brass might look okay. So I'm going to have a go at that, and that means cutting a bit of brass. Fortunately, this is quite a repetitive process and there's not a lot to see, so I'll get on with it and I'll come back to you. Okay, well, it's taken a little while, but I have shaped that piece of brass, and well, I think that looks quite smart. Well, I sort of felt that I'd lost my way with this build, but I think I'm pulling it back gradually, and this guitar is looking much nicer than it was, and I think adding the brass is really giving it a bit of class, really. Yeah, it's sort of adding to it rather than detracting from it, which the white was doing. So I'm going to wrap this video up because it's quite long. Thank you very much for watching, and thank you for following me in this series, and all those comments that you give me are really helpful. Thank you for that. I'm going to now be sanding the body down and restaining the headstock, so I'll do that in between videos, I think, and hopefully when I come back it's going to be a question of stringing this guitar up and setting it up. Anyway, in the meantime, I hope you stay safe, and I'll see you soon. Cheers.